Hello and welcome to Preview Percy for the Heart of Thinking. Next up, we entertain Southampton at the Olympic Stadium. Now, there's lots and lots of engineering works between Liverpool Street and Stratford, and also on the C2C line in the Grays area. So if I were you, I'd get the district line to, say for example, Plaistow, say around 12:15, or perhaps West Ham about 12:30, or even the DLR to Stratford High Street at 12:45. Or Pudding Mill Lane, just say for argument's sake, about 1 p.m, and then take a bit of a stroll along the Greenway, which is the lovely fluffy name they've given to the footpath that runs along the top of the Northern Outfall sewer. I dare say that if you turn up at those times, you might bump into a few like-minded souls on the way. Be careful, mind. It would appear that the club has introduced a dress policy so that certain t-shirts are banned. Enough of all that. So Southampton then. Well, they're sitting in the relatively calm waters of 12th place with 34 points from the 27 games they've played so far. Much has been said about their reversal of fortune, which has taken place since they got thumped 9-0 by Leicester. However, even for the first few games after that, their form was somewhat indifferent. No, the real turning point came after we beat them 1-0 at St Mary's back in December. Following that, they won 4 and drew 1 of their next 5, a sequence that included a 2-1 win at the aforementioned Leicester. Having seemingly gotten themselves in a position of relative safety, they reverted to type, losing 4-0 to a VAR-inspired Liverpool, then 2-1 at home to Burnley. They got back onto winning ways last weekend, though, beating Villa 2-0 at St Mary's, the second goal coming as a breakaway from a Villa corner for which Rayner had gone up, leaving a nice empty goal for Armstrong to tuck into. Daisy, my full-time personal assistant, with a beautiful smile, informs me that they did 2 bits of business during the January transfer window, both of them in the loan market. They went to Spurs to pick up Kyle Walker-Peters to bolster their defence. Walker-Peters, who rejoices in the splendid middle name of Leonardus, has a deal with the club until the end of the season, though everybody's being rather tight-lipped as to what might happen after that. Walker-Peters is rated as a bit of a doubt for this one. He missed the Villa match with a calf injury, and at the time of writing, or reading, or whatever you want to call it, he's listed as having no more than a 50-50 chance of featuring this weekend. While we're looking at their injuries, definitely ruled out is Nathan Redmond. He's been struggling with an injury to his pelvis. His influence will be missed. He was last season's player of the season. The second arrival was Jacob Maddox, who arrived from Chelsea's loan stock. It's a bit of an odd one, this. He originally signed a season-long deal with Tranmere Rovers, but featured only in a couple of EFL trophy matches. With no sign of him featuring the first 11 on the horizon in the Wirral, it was agreed by all concerned that the loan deal should be cut short, whereupon Chelsea shipped the player down to St Mary's, where he is yet to feature. I guess it'd be rather odd for someone to sort of fail on the Wirral and make it in Southampton, but I guess stranger things have happened. Catching all the headlines for them at present is still Danny Ings. He was their top scorer back in December when we played them at their place, and that remains the case. He now has 18 goals in all competitions. It'd be something of a surprise if he weren't to be included in the England squads for the matches against Italy and Denmark towards the end of March. They gave a league debut to 20-year-old Will Smallbone in the Villa match, and you can stop that sniggering at the back right now. It was the central midfielder's second first-team appearance, his full debut coming in the FA Cup a few weeks back against Huddersfield Town. Great things are predicted for him, with his manager describing him as the future of Southampton Football Club. So no pressure then. And so we move on to the wide and wacky world of association football. Well, there was fallout from the PGMOL statement that they might have gotten the Chelsea versus Spurs game ever so slightly wrong. They've now asked for 527 other offences to be taken into consideration, a figure that rises to over 2,000 if you take Liverpool matches into account. Meanwhile, there's a bit of a row brewing over the so-called interview that Lineker conducted with Jurgen Klopp last week. It seems that Lineker's heard about the Valentine's card Klopp sent to Jonathan Moss, and he's more than a tad jealous. Elsewhere, there's a little more information about Liverpool's hacking into Manchester City's data systems, slowly seeping into the public domain. The FA's comment was that they'd followed their established protocol in deciding that there were no further investigations to be carried out, which is quite interesting. 3 months ago, the FA was seeking an integrity investigator whose role was to investigate breaches of rules and regulations that would relate to the integrity of the game, and to prepare detailed case files for prosecutions. There's nothing within the FA's protocol, written or otherwise, that prevents them from pursuing misdemeanours, irrespective of whether one side has paid off the other. So yet again it would appear that a new rule has been invented just when Liverpool get involved. Which brings us on to us. Well, Monday night was a performance that actually matched the description Moyes gave to the Man City match. Here's a thing for the coaching staff to consider. Whilst we may have lost both games against the top two, the one in which we showed some sort of attacking intent actually did our goal difference the least harm. Liverpool, of course, were their usual diving, niggly selves, benefiting once more from Jonathan Moss's generosity. Yet again, it wasn't the big stuff. It was all those minor decisions that add up. The failure to punish any of the 3 fouls on Antonio prior to the opener. The strange and deliberate ignoring of Law 12's requirements on simulation, which contains the phrase, "A player must be cautioned." Even the saving header which diverted the ball 90 degrees both upwards and laterally, which somehow wasn't a corner at the end, kind of gave the game away. Even the VAR decision that did go our way really ought to have been given instantly on the pitch. Knowing you're going to be cheated whenever you go up there doesn't really make it any easier to bear. And neither does the blind eye turn towards it all from the broadcast media. Now, I've got home and I've watched the match recording, and I was gobsmacked at just how one-sided the coverage was. The nearest anybody got to criticism of the darlings in red was Martin Tyler's comment on one of the more disgusting attempts by Salah to con the referee. "He's got them before, but not this time," said Tyler. Incidentally, Tyler, while you were technically correct in saying that Noble had been sent off during our last win up there, you could at least have had the decency to remember that the decision was rescinded as soon as the FA's offices opened on the Monday morning, on the grounds that the decision stunk even by Anfield standards. Whilst we were at it, did I really hear Tyler suggest that all protests should be postponed until the summer? What a good idea that is. Let's all go march on an empty stadium. Clearly, stupidity is catching, and Tyler's been standing too close to Jamie Carragher for far too long. Meanwhile, Liverpool show how far the game has sunk. We're now looking at the teams employing Revy's Leeds tactics, something that is now routinely accepted. I remember when such tactics used to be decried rather than applauded. Still, I suppose I am rather old. I'll have a quick word now about Fabianski. He hasn't really been quite himself since he returned from the injury, and again from the injury, but I would say that we probably owe him some slack based on his past performances. His apology to the away fans showed that he actually cared. Hopefully he'll be able to put it all out of his mind and move on. Before I move on, it would be remiss of me not to offer a doff of the cap to young Jeremy Ngakia, who's now played 2 matches, both against Liverpool, and not looked out of place in either of them. Early days to be sure, but the lad's future does look promising. Of course, there's always a new injury to consider. Souček had looked okay since his arrival, so I guess it was inevitable that he would be injured. Given the nature of the knock, a groin muscle problem similar to the one that messed up Fabianski's season, it seemed rather an odd decision to send him out for the second half, when he was clearly not going to get any better. Hi Thomas, let me introduce you to Wilshere. You'll be seeing a lot of each other over the next few weeks. Yarmolenko and Fredericks will also be on the sick for this one. Prediction? Well, my natural instinct is to urge a bit of caution. We're masters of the false dawn, and every bright performance seemed to be followed up by a duff one. However, having said that, there ought to be a double boost of sorts. Firstly, by having got Man City and Liverpool out of the way, that in itself will be a relief. And then if you look at the performance against the home 12 at Anfield, there was enough to suggest a green shoot or two. So I'm going to ignore the swollen tonsils here that are putting a damper on my normally happy-go-lucky demeanour, and I'm going to keep the £2.50 I was going to pay to send a copy of Law 12 to John Moss. Let's face it, the yellow card for simulation is never going to be given against a home team at Anfield. And I'm going to pop down to Winston the turf accountant with a view to placing the lot on a home win. Let's call it 2-1, shall we? Enjoy the game, and remember you can read this, if you've got something more of an attention span, on kumb.com, where you'll also find Percy's Poser. Enjoy the game.